Daily routine, presenting and reading petitions. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a petition, the operative clause of which is, we, the undersigned, call on the Nova Scotia Legislature to pass Bill 86, which would enact the Auditor General's recommendations and align the additional appropriations process with standards across the country to provide accountability and transparency over the spending of all public funds. And there are a number of signatures here from Halifax Citadel Sable Island, and I have affixed my own signature.
The petition is tabled. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a petition with the operative clause reading. Whereas the Nova Scotia Cumberland Healthcare Centre Pain Clinic has been scheduled to close on September 19th, 2025. Therefore, we, the undersigned patients, families, as well as participants and related administrators of Cumberland Regional Healthcare Centre Chronic Pain Services, receiving interventional pain care, call upon the Minister of Health and Wellness to reinstate the interventional pain services located at Cumberland Regional Healthcare Centre by securing all necessary resources, documents, facilities, and finances to reestablish this vital healthcare service to all healthcare citizens served by its presence. Madam Speaker, there are 287 signatures, and I have affixed my signatures as per rules of the House. Thank you.
The petition is tabled. Presenting reports of committees. Tabling reports, regulations, and other papers. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'll be tabling this report in my capacity as Minister of Service Efficiency. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to table the 2024 annual report from the Office of Service Efficiency, reducing red tape to improve government efficiency and effectiveness. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Hear, hear.
The report is tabled. I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a document with regards to my member statement regarding the Reverend Duncan E. Roach from New Waterford.
The paper is tabled. Statements by ministers. I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a privilege to stand today to talk about Wind West, Canada's first offshore wind project. For too long, Nova Scotia has faced headwinds. It's time to position the province to put those winds at our back. Wind West has a plan to capture the strong and steady winds from our offshore and deliver clean energy to markets in need. And by developing offshore wind and working with our neighboring provinces, the federal government and the private sector to build the transmission infrastructure, Nova Scotia is taking a lead role in the global energy transition while also transforming our own economic future. At its heart, Wind West is about Canada's energy security and climate leadership by unlocking one of the world's greatest untapped clean energy resources, up to 60 gigawatts of potential capacity. It will connect supply to demand from the Atlantic to markets in Ontario, Quebec, and possibly the northeastern United States. And it's doing so with fixed, stable prices that protect consumers and attract investment. The first phase alone Up to 5 gigawatts or 5,000 megawatts will generate 24 terawatt hours of clean energy annually. This is equivalent to twice the output of Niagara Falls. And this is just the beginning. It's scalable, and its scalability is attractive to the private sector, and we'll continue to develop our expertise as we move forward. This is a nation-building project and opportunity. The project will drive tens of billions of dollars of new investment, create thousands of jobs, and anchor a brand new industry in Canada with significant benefits that will be felt across our entire province and country. Madam Speaker, it will modernize ports, train a new generation of workers, and offer meaningful opportunities for communities to participate. For too long, Nova Scotia has been a have-not province. That ends now. Wind West is the biggest opportunity in front of us, and I will do everything in my power to make it happen. The federal government has indicated that it matches our ambition. This will be a true partnership with strategic investments, clear actions that we've laid out in our Wind West proposal that can unlock private capital, accelerate development, and reduce risk, all to build our nation and help Nova Scotia become a clean energy superpower where we export not just electrons, but expertise, innovation, and opportunity, and raise essential revenues to pay for healthcare, education, roads, and housing. I ask all members of the House to acknowledge the benefits that Wind West offers and stand with us as we press forward to make it happen for Nova Scotia. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to rise and address the need for clean energy in our province and the opportunities for our province. The plan to finally harness our offshore wind is an important moment for our future. At a time when we risk missing our own clean energy goals, when the current government has only just stopped railing against climate action, and when Nova Scotians are facing another winter of expensive, unreliable power, clean energy cannot come soon enough. As we ramp up to build this green energy resource, we have to ensure the benefit for Nova Scotians is the top priority. Wind West, as it's described, has the potential to generate and deliver this power, and we will support this or any project that finally provides Nova Scotians access to the reliable, affordable green energy they have been promised by this government and the Liberal government before them. Offshore wind is a chance to harness our renewable resources, strengthen our grid, create new green jobs, and lower bills to benefit Nova Scotians. At the same time, our $2 billion lobster industry must be a part of these conversations so that future offshore opportunities coexist with our traditional economic drivers. We need to know that good jobs will be available to Nova Scotians. We need to know that if a private sector proponent comes forward and this project becomes more than just a proposal, that the economic impact for our province will be long-lasting and benefit all Nova Scotians. Power is expensive and still too often generated by burning coal. If we're going to export green energy, we need to make sure we green the power Nova Scotians are using first. As offshore wind plans move forward, we must ensure that Nova Scotians benefit directly. We look forward to this project moving forward and seeing how everyday Nova Scotians will benefit from it.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as Liberals, we have long supported the idea of offshore wind and clean energy in our province. And Madam Speaker, renewable energy is critical to Nova Scotia's future, and the offshore wind presents a generational opportunity for our province. Clean, more affordable power isn't just good for the environment, is essential for families and businesses across Nova Scotia. Liberals have long supported the development of clean energy, but we also know to make that possible, our grid must be ready. We've seen what happens on a bright sunny day when the power goes out. Our current system can't handle the demand we already have. Before adding more capacity, we need upfront investments to strengthen and modernize our grid. That's why I'm proud to see our Prime Minister Carney and our Liberal government signal that they are ready to be funding partners in these projects. Working together, federally, provincially, and the private sector, we can unlock Nova Scotia's offshore wind potential, deliver cleaner and more affordable energy, create jobs, and build new industries that benefit communities across this province. Offshore wind can be the cornerstone of our energy future, but only if we act strategically. I hope to see this government embrace collaboration this time around for the good of all Nova Scotians, to see the reality of the potential that offshore wind can have for Nova Scotia and beyond. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Seeing no more government notice of motions. I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make some introductions in relation to the notice of motion that I will read.
Please do.
And I'll ask them to rise when I ask their name. But in the Speaker's Gallery today, we have some Nova Scotians who are making a real impact on their communities. They are members of the Nova Scotia Guard, and they've made it their mission to help their neighbours in times of need, and with everything from helping at comfort centres, to peeling potatoes to feed our first responders, to managing parking at a scene, just generally supporting the work of our first responders and Nova Scotians. This month, the Guard is celebrating its first year anniversary. 1 year, Madam Speaker. And under the incredible leadership of the Minister, the Guard has stepped up to support the RCMP and ground search and rescue crews during a heartbreaking search for Lily and Jack Sullivan in Pictou County. And more recently, they stepped up again during the devastating Long Lake wildfires in Annapolis County. Madam Speaker, there were over 50 Nova Scotia Guard members who volunteered during these two events. But unfortunately, space is limited in the gallery today, so we couldn't bring them all here for an introduction, but I want it to be known to each of them how thankful we are as a province, and that none of their efforts go unnoticed or underappreciated. Their dedication to supporting their neighbours is the foundation of what the Nova Scotia Guard represents. It exemplifies what it means to be a Nova Scotian. It personifies the Blue Noser spirit that we are all so proud of. Now I'd ask each member to please rise as I introduce them so they may receive the warm welcome of the House. Madam Speaker, I'd like to introduce Chantal LeBlanc, Brian Buttrin, Bill Muirhead, Victoria Marshall, Marianne Wagstaff, and Ron Lowe. Heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you, and welcome to the legislature today.
Welcome. We hope you enjoy your time here, and thank you for stepping up to help your fellow Nova Scotians. Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas our province is experiencing more frequent and severe emergencies like wildfires, floods, and winter storms, and Nova Scotians by nature are always quick to show their Blue Noser spirit by helping their neighbours in need in any way they can. And whereas the Nova Scotia Guard was created 1 year ago on September 20th, 2024, to address the need for a coordinated approach for volunteer emergency response resources. And whereas over 2,480 Nova Scotians have registered as Nova Scotia Guard members, completing their training and offering their skills and time to help when they are called upon during emergencies. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of the legislature celebrate the Nova Scotia Guard on its first-year anniversary and recognize the impact the Guard and its individual members have had in helping communities in times of need. Madam Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for a waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Madam Speaker, everyone in this chamber knows what it means to be a Nova Scotian. Checking in on neighbours, lending a hand to those who are in need, or giving a shoulder to lean on. These are the things that make up the fabric of who we are. And never are those qualities more present than when a community as a whole faces an emergency. Madam Speaker, in your gallery today, I'm honored to recognize just some of the community members from the Bridgetown Fire Hall in Annapolis County who stepped up, rolled up their sleeves, and got to work to help their community during the devastating Long Lake wildfires. A lifelong resident and current president of the West Dalhousie Community Hall, Jonathan Gillis, who has recently taken on a new important role as navigator coordinator of a new program that was established to support residents affected by the Long Lake wildfires. In his new role, Jonathan helps evacuees navigate the complex processes of recovery, including accessing funds, completing insurance claims, and connecting with essential resources. Working alongside Jonathan is Debbie Stultz-Giffen, the Community Hall's corporate secretary and past president. Debbie was instrumental in the Community Hall's cooking and humanitarian efforts, whether it was helping to get rooms for those who were displaced, money for gas, food, or organizing volunteers. Debbie was at the heart of the matter. Madam Speaker, may I also note that both Jonathan and Debbie are evacuees of the Long Lake wildfires themselves. They were both evacuated on August 24th, and despite it all, they both continued to serve their communities, helping more than 100 volunteer firefighters and most of their community's evacuees while waiting to return to their own homes. I don't know of a greater dedication than that. I'm also honored to welcome Julie McNabb, a new addition to the Community Hall and one who has brought so much energy, innovation, and new ideas to the table. Julie helped organize the staggering amount of assistance that has came into the hall and helping to arrange for accommodations, streaming the process for people to submit their offers for help. Julie was instrumental in organizing several large donations to the community. Madam Speaker, the dedication and the love of community they have all shown have proven to be a comfort for those around them. And I thank them from the bottom of my heart for all they did and continue to do for the people of West Dalhousie. Madam Speaker, I would ask that they all rise so that they may receive the warm welcome of this House.
Welcome. We hope you enjoy your time here. It's great to see a whole bunch of homegrown heroes filling up the Speaker's Gallery. Thank you for coming. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Nova Scotians are known for their pride in community, unmatched hospitality, and the genuine desire to help their neighbours in need. And whereas the Long Lake wildfires in Annapolis County have devastated that community, burning over 84 hectares, sadly destroying 20 homes, and forcing over 500 homes to be evacuated. And whereas members of that community and true Blue Noser spirit stepped up to help their community in need by volunteering at the Comfort Center, preparing food for the firefighting crews, and in one case, taking on a brand new role as a system navigator, helping those displaced by the fires to find and apply for government supports that can help during this challenging time. Therefore, it be resolved that all members of the legislature recognize these outstanding community members who have helped bring a sense of comfort during times of devastation and commend them for being a pillar of strength in their community. Madam Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favor please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the, I'm dropping things. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Lenew Affairs. Okay.
Madam Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas September 22nd to 26th is Truth and Reconciliation Week in Canada. And whereas Halifax hosted the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's National Youth Empowerment event for over 5,000 students and teachers on September 18th to honor residential school survivors and share in the beauty and strength of Indigenous culture, music, dance, and history. And whereas September 30th is National Truth and Reconciliation Day and Orange Shirt Day in Nova Scotia. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of the House join me today in encouraging all Nova Scotians to take a moment on September 30th to learn about the history and legacy of residential school survivors and make a commitment to continue our education and awareness in order to build respectful relationships with one another. Madam Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day, I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Nova Scotia is putting wind to work, both onshore and offshore, to bring new jobs and investment to our communities and grow our green economy. And whereas we've set things in motion for Nova Scotia and Canada's first call for bids for offshore wind, and we look forward to reaching our full potential as a major exporter of clean energy through Wind West. And whereas onshore wind is key to greening the grid, and we just reached another milestone with the Benjamin Mills wind farm completing construction, and we will be procuring more wind that, along with other initiatives, will get us to our 2030 goal. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of the House recognize the significant progress being made to get off coal and reach 80% clean electricity by the end of 2030. Madam Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. Introduction of bills. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Growth and Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. On behalf of my colleague, the Honourable Minister of Service Nova Scotia, I beg leave to introduce an act entitled An Act to Protect Nova Scotians.
The Honourable Minister of Growth and Development begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Protect Nova Scotians.
Bill 127, an act to protect Nova Scotians.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill on behalf of the Leader of the Official Opposition entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 1996, the Sales Tax Act.
The Honourable Member for Dartmouth North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 1996, the Sales Tax Act.
Bill 128, an act to amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 1996, the Sales Tax Act.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the Honourable Member of Sydney Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Strengthen the Electric Utility Reliability Standards.
The Honourable Member for Sydney Member 2 begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Strengthen Electric Utility Reliability Standards.
Bill 129, an act to strengthen electric utility reliability standards.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Highways and Traffic Safety.
The Honourable Minister of Public Works begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Highways and Traffic Safety.
Bill 130, an act respecting highways and traffic safety.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Privacy and Credit Protection.
The Honourable Member for Dartmouth North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Privacy and Credit Protection.
Bill 131, an act respecting privacy and credit protection.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act Respecting Electric Utility Capital Accountability and Transmission Competition.
The Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Electric Utility Capital Accountability and Transmission Competition.
Bill 132, an act respecting electric utility capital accountability and transmission competition.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Control Access to Age-Restricted Social Media Platforms.
The honourable member for Timberley Prospect begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Control Access to Age-Restricted Social Media Platforms.
Bill 133, an act to control access to age-restricted social media platforms.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. And we are going. Notices of motions. I recognize the honourable member from Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day, I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the land of Nova Scotia has endured a deep and punishing drought this growing season, leaving fields thirsty and orchards strained, and our farmers and growers uncertain of a tomorrow where their fields will flourish and bloom. And whereas our wild blueberry farmers, the stewards of our most treasured and renowned crops, are seeing harvests cut of a fraction of what they should be, threatening livelihoods and the future of an iconic industry, and our apple growers, who give us the orchards that shape the Annapolis Valley, are struggling to keep young trees alive in the face of the relentless heat. Whereas to imagine a Nova Scotia without wild blueberry or apple industry is to imagine a province without a part of our identity and a part of our history. Therefore, be it resolved that on a future date, the House shall devote a period of no less than 40 minutes to debate the importance of providing immediate support to ensure the survival of an industry and to commit meaningful research in soil health to ensure survival of an industry that would fundamentally change Nova Scotia if we lost it. I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? No. Hearing several nays, the notice of motion is tabled. Statements by members. I recognize the honourable member of Annapolis.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to commend the incredible volunteers at the West Dalhousie Community Hall for their heroic efforts in supporting the fight against the Long Lake fires. When hundreds of firefighters from across Canada arrived to battle the blaze that grew to more than 8,400 hectares, the community center became a vital headquarters. Under the leadership of the President, Jonathan Gillis, its members worked tirelessly for the entire operation, providing countless meals, water, and Gatorade to sustain the weary crews. Their selfless service embodies the very best of our Nova Scotian spirit: resilience, generosity, and community. While they have humbly noted that all costs are covered, their dedication has inspired an outpouring of support from citizens across the province looking to help our neighbors in need. I ask all members to join me in thanking the volunteers of West Dalhousie for their extraordinary contribution to keeping our residents and our province safe. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Armdale.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
I ask members of the legislature to join me in welcoming Alan Linkletter, President of CUPE Nova Scotia, and members of the CUPE Long-Term Care Committee and Bargaining Team today.
Welcome to the House. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Armdale.
represents 22,000 members in over 140 locals across this province. CUPE members provide quality services in many areas, including long-term care, acute care, emergency services, and home support services. They are currently working above and beyond the call of duty without contract. Your work is going noticed today, and I deeply appreciate your work, as do many of your clients, I expect. I want to thank all CUPE members for your care, compassion, and dedication to Nova Scotia in challenging times. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm thrilled to share very joyful news yet again with the House. First, I want to thank the government for waiting till late September to call the House back. My wife Mary and I are delighted to announce the arrival of our beautiful daughter Elodie. Elodie May was born on the 16th of September, and our hearts are full and our family is overjoyed to welcome her into our lives. Elodie's big sister Freya was especially excited, wanting to hold her, and Owen, especially to have the new baby in the house. They've already shown great enthusiasm and eagerness to help out. And as we look ahead, Mary and I are filled with anticipation for years to come, teaching, guiding, and nurturing all of our children. We look forward to family outings, cheering on our kids at sporting events, participating at school activities. And out of the three, I'm pretty sure we'll have a piper in the mix, maybe even a fiddler too. And most importantly, we're going to be there to love and support each of them. So I just wanted to thank the House for sharing the good news. I want to give a quote from Gordon Wilson, former MLA. He said, "There's nothing more pure than a baby's smile," and that's certainly true. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Congratulations to you and your family, honourable member. Well, the honourable member behind you. I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise today to honour the life of Debbie Clark, a beloved and vibrant member of our community who passed away on Saturday, August 2nd, 2025. Debbie was the dedicated partner of the Fairview Legion's Brian Forbes for 25 years. Debbie was a proud Nova Scotian, a cherished daughter, and a loving mother to her two sons, Corey James and Beau Daniel. Debbie's spirit was one of boundless generosity and a remarkable can-do attitude. She was a multi-talented woman known for her exceptional skills in cooking, sewing, and crafts. Her strength was truly inspirational. Even while battling cancer, she found immense joy and a reason to persevere in the life of her great niece, Zoe Clark. In a final tribute to her vibrant personality, she requested that everyone wear red, a color that perfectly captured her beautiful spirit. Debbie Clark will be remembered for her open heart, warm smile, and unwavering kindness she showed everyone that she met. My deepest sympathies go out to her family and all who had the privilege of knowing her.
I recognize the honourable member for Colchester, Musquodoboit Valley.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. As a proud grandson of a World War I veteran and one of the founding members of Branch 26 of the Truro Legion, I rise today to pay tribute and recognition to legions across this province and across Canada. The week of September 21st to September 27th is National Legion Week. In Colchester, Musquodoboit Valley, we have two legions, Stewiacke and Upper Musquodoboit. And during this week, legions educate residents about the great work they are doing in our areas. They serve and support our veterans and contribute to the well-being of our communities. It is also an opportunity to draw in new members who will volunteer and continue their valuable services. In many rural areas, Legion branches serve as the primary community center, hosting events such as weddings, town meetings, community barbecues, memorial services, and other important events and activities. I ask all members to join me in thanking our Legions and their members for the service to our communities, lest we forget. Hear, hear.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I rise to recognize two extraordinary physicians who have been leading the Cumberland Regional Pain Clinic, a clinic that for 17 years has provided life-changing care to over 3,000 patients from Cumberland County, but also from across the entire Maritime region. Dr. Justina Kroloss is a graduate of McGill University's Ronald Melzack Fellowship in Pain Medicine, one of the most prestigious programs in the country, if not the world. She went on to be recognized as a fellow in interventional pain procedures by the World Institute of Pain, an achievement that places her among the very best in her field globally. Her colleague, Dr. Dan Stavanovich, completed a Category 2 Enhanced Skills Program in Interventional and Chronic Pain Medicine through Dalhousie University. This was an innovative program that he himself designed to bridge the gap between psychological and interventional techniques for pain management. Madam Speaker, these are highly qualified physicians and who choose to serve in our region, and I implore the minister to work with them to reopen the Cumberland Pain Clinic. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to wish the Jewish community a Shana Tova and a healthy and sweet New Year. The Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, began at sunset on September 22nd. It is a time of new beginnings and fresh starts. It is perhaps also an opportunity for a renewed effort to make Nova Scotia safer for all of its residents, regardless of religion, race, or cultural background. On the night of September 13th, every synagogue in Halifax was vandalized with anti-Semitic graffiti on the same night. They used symbols of hate and conspiracy theory in 6 separate locations in our city. This has had a major emotional impact on the entire Jewish community. In 2022, the government, with support of all parties, adopted the Dismantling Racism and Hate Act. Despite a number of roundtables and discussions, a definition of anti-Semitism has not yet been adopted by the province. Those that have worked on this bill and advocated know that in order to fulfill the mandate of Dismantling Racism and Hate Act, we must identify racism and hate so that we can support local law enforcement to protect Nova Scotians. I'm calling on the government of Nova Scotia to reaffirm its commitment to working with community leadership to define anti-Semitism for the intended purpose of this act. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for King South.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and honor Mr. Albert Tracy, a long-time and deeply dedicated resident of King South. For decades, Albert supported countless political figures and campaigns, contributing both quietly behind the scenes and very vocally when his voice needed to be heard. His unwavering commitment to our community was always evident, whether through his hands-on involvement or his thoughtful and candid advice. I was fortunate to experience Albert's incredible support firsthand. During my nomination, throughout my campaign, and even now in this role, he has been a source of wisdom, encouragement, and perspective. Albert had a way of seeing things differently, bringing insight and experience to those around him. Albert Tracy was truly one of the fierce cornerstones of our community, a man whose legacy of service and support will be felt for many years to come. King South is better because of him. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel, Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize the volunteer efforts of Gordon Porter of Habitat. Gordon is well known in the community for always going above and beyond to create and connect community. As an English and music teacher at the Canning High School for over 30 years, and even more years teaching archery and canoeing skills in the community. It's no surprise then that when Gordon became aware of the need to feed hundreds of firefighters, he started making trips from home to Cornwallis Park. Not only is he taking his own donations, but is gathering donations from around the Canning area, allowing many people to feel connected and feel like they can make a contribution. He has been able to find out what was needed, ranging from granola bars to bacon to vegetables and more, and facilitate many folks in lending their support to the firefighting effort. Food certainly is Nova Scotians' love language, and with Gordon's help, many people have been able to be involved. Last week's call-out included homemade pickles, and people have responded with their favorites. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of the legislature to thank Gordon Porter for his volunteer efforts to keep the firefighters well fed and cared for this past summer.
I I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to take a moment to celebrate the extraordinary achievement by Team Nova Scotia at the 2025 Canada Summer Games in St. John's. Our athletes delivered an outstanding performance, earning 61 medals, 21 gold, 22 silver, and 18 bronze. This accomplishment reflects not only the athletic excellence, but also the spirit of teamwork and resilience that defines us as Nova Scotians. From paddling to basketball, our athletes gave it their all, pushing each other to do their best and lifting one another up along the way. To all the athletes, coaches, and the coaches, the pride, energy, and camaraderie you brought to every event truly captured the spirit of our province. Congratulations, Team Nova Scotia. You made us all very proud. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Kings North.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize an outstanding physician leader, Dr. Ahmed Saleh, who is a psychiatrist based at Valley Regional Hospital in Kentville. Dr. Saleh was recently awarded the Leadership Excellence Award Physician Leader, one of Nova Scotia Health's highest honours. This award celebrates a physician who leads with compassion, integrity, and vision, all qualities that define Dr. Saleh's remarkable service. Since joining Valley Regional in 2018, Dr. Saleh has driven province-wide improvements in mental health and addictions care. He currently serves as a site lead for psychiatry at Valley Regional Hospital and the Department of Head of Psychiatry for the Western Zone. Dr. Saleh is committed to helping individuals in acute mental health crisis and brings that frontline perspective to system-wide planning. He's a strong advocate for equity, diversity, inclusion, reconciliation, accessibility in all aspects of healthcare. Humble in receiving this honor, Dr. Saleh shares credit with his colleagues, calling himself just a small part of a dedicated team. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of this House join me in congratulating Dr. Ahmed Saleh on his well-deserved recognition and in thanking him for his exceptional leadership and contributions to mental health care in Nova Scotia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, with roots going back to the late 1950s, the Dartmouth Players Community Theatre continues their legacy as being the only community theatre in Dartmouth, as well as one of the most active volunteer-based theatre groups in Nova Scotia. Throughout their history, they've demonstrated perseverance through many location changes and loss of theatre spaces while staying dedicated to the art of live theatre. In the fall of 1987, they found their home of over 30 years at the Creighton Avenue Community Centre, where they hosted over 60 plays and grew their audience to upwards of 5,000 people a season. Unfortunately, in 2022, they were required to leave that space behind. However, after spending 2 years in a temporary location, I now get to welcome them into the community of Dartmouth North in their new permanent location at the Stairs Memorial United Church on Hester Street. Currently on stage at the new space, The Mousetrap by Agatha Christie and directed by Phil Blackmore is playing until September 27th. Madam Speaker, you should get your tickets before they sell out. I would ask the whole House to join me in recognizing and welcoming the Dartmouth Players Community Theatre to their new location and to wish them the best of luck for the future of theatre in Dartmouth North.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in my place because this past weekend we saw hundreds of people come together to join us at our annual general meeting here in Halifax. Liberals from all across Nova Scotia and concerned citizens came together to talk about what's important to them and what's important to their communities. A lot of work goes into that, and a lot of volunteers are owed a lot of thanks for a wonderful weekend. It was also an opportunity for Liberals, both here provincially elected and federally, to sit down together as a party and talk about important initiatives that is important to Nova Scotia, including cost of living, including issues that support communities each and every day, and the potential that wind energy brings to our province. So I rise in my place to thank all of the volunteers who put on an outstanding weekend bringing us all together. And I also rise in my place to thank my federal colleagues for a very wonderful and important conversation around how, as Liberals, we can help to move this province forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton East.
Madam Speaker, today I rise to recognize the incredible dedication and hard work that went into establishing the Cape Breton Medical Campus. This milestone is transformational in expanding educational opportunities and addressing critical healthcare needs across our province. The creation of this medical school opens new opportunities for aspiring physicians from the region and strengthens access to healthcare in rural communities across the province. Training 30 additional doctors each year will help ensure that people in remote and underserved areas can receive timely, quality care close to home. This achievement reflects the commitment of countless individuals, educators, healthcare professionals, community leaders, and government partners who work tirelessly to bring this vision to life. I look forward to seeing this positive impact this institution will have on both the healthcare system and the opportunities it will create for students and families across Nova Scotia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make 2 introductions.
Please do.
Madam Speaker, in our gallery today, we have former MLA Matt Wynot of Hammonds Plains Upper Sackville, the youngest ever to be elected at the age of 24. Madam Speaker, we also have my dear friend, Tammy Martin, former MLA for Cape Breton Centre, as it was then, staunch help. As everyone in this House who's come up against Tammy would know, she's a staunch healthcare advocate and advocate for labor, and you don't want to mess with her. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Welcome, welcome to the House, and we hope you enjoy your time here watching. I recognize the honourable member for, oh, no, never mind. I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On April 9th, my community lost Reverend Duncan Roach, the long-serving minister of Calvin United in New Waterford. He was truly a pillar of our community, a true gentleman, kind, good-natured, and loved his community, and we loved him. When he became the minister of Calvin United in 1970, he wasted no time enmeshing himself in the fabric of our community, becoming involved in many community organizations and causes too long to mention. When Reverend Duncan Roach and I would speak, he would thoughtfully comment on the issues facing our community or a topic of debate in the legislature. Our hearts go out to his family, his friends, and all who loved him. Rest easy, Reverend Duncan Roach. You have earned that rest. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Speaker, I rise today to recognize the thousands of patients of the Cumberland Regional Pain Clinic who have spoken up with courage and determination in the face of uncertainty. For 17 years, the Pain Clinic has provided essential care to over 3,500 patients from Cumberland County and across the Maritime region. Chronic and acute pain directly diminish quality of life. And for these patients, the clinic has been a source of hope, relief, and dignity. Yet today, patients remain in limbo. They face debilitating pain, and now the anguish of not knowing whether their treatment will continue is too much. They have raised their voices, signed petitions, and shared their stories because they know how vital this clinic is. Their courage in speaking up deserves to be recognized in this House. And earlier, Madam Speaker, I tabled a petition. I gave the wrong number. I was a little dyslexic. I said 287. It's actually 827 signatures. So I implore the minister to listen to the patients. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Eastern Passage.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to make an introductions.
Please do.
Thank you. I'd like to draw everybody's attention to the East Gallery, where we have 2 staunch PC party members, Rhonda Vickers from Eastern Passage and Dr. Lisa Bonang from the Eastern Shore.
Welcome, welcome to the House of the People. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Eastern Passage.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Shearwater Flyer Trail Association for their dedicated efforts and strong community spirit. The members include Brian Henry, Cindy James, Joe Arnold, Lisa Roche, Lisa Frosch, Robert Crowley, Ryan Kemp, Kenny Wells, Andrew Huxley, Donald Marks, and myself. Although small in number, the mighty association has proven to be a powerful force in stepping up to soon take over the management of the Shearwater Flyer Trail from the Marine Riders. The commitment of this small group is evident through their successful organization of trail cleanups, regular maintenance, and helping to ensure that the trail remains safe, functional, and enjoyable for all community members. The community benefits from a well-kept and accessible trail system that supports outdoor recreation in our community. I ask all members of the Nova Scotia Legislature to join me in recognizing the Shearwater Flyer Trail Association members whose dedication is a testament to what can be achieved when a small group of community members come together with purpose and with pride. We are truly fortunate to have such a passionate group of volunteers in our community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, Rosh Hashanah began last night for our Nova Scotian Jewish community. It's a time of reflection for the past year and the hope for the new year. This holiday is the first days of Awe, the period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I wish all celebrating Shana Tova, may your homes be filled with the sweetness of honey and the warmth of community this Rosh Hashanah. At the same time, I would like to ask all members to reconnect to ending anti-Semitism in Nova Scotia. We all have a role to play. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as a youth, I can still recall the voice in my head. Skate, you redheaded, or run, you redheaded. And my mother could be very colorful, so I won't repeat what she said afterwards. But Madam Speaker, believe it or not, I had hair, and it was red. But today, on September 23rd, I do want to recognize my mother. It's her 74th birthday today. And from my family and I, we'd like to wish her a happy birthday. And she's a great part of the reason why I'm standing here today and being able to be blessed to be representative for Cumberland South. But also, on her 7th birthday, Madam Speaker, she was blessed with a gift in the form of a baby brother. And it's Uncle Bill's birthday as well today. It's also a big part of my reason for being here, my reason for being an electrician in the trades before I was elected to politics. So a special happy cake day to Mom and Uncle Bill.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. As we commence the sitting of the legislature, the students and faculty of Dalhousie University commenced a full slate of fall semester courses today. After the Dalhousie Faculty Association was locked out by the school's Board of Governors, the union spent weeks urging them to come back to the table and negotiate in good faith. It was only after weeks of picketing, rallying, and asserting their rights to free and fair bargaining that a deal was struck and ratified by both sides on September the 17th. Through their solidarity, faculty realized improvements of wages, working conditions, and parental leave that also benefit other bargaining units. I was honored to stand in solidarity with more than 1,000 educators and staff who asserted their value even when their employer wouldn't come to the table. Speaker, I ask all members to join me in congratulating the DFA on their resolve and in wishing Dal faculty and students a prosperous return to classes for 2025-2026.
I recognize the honourable member for Hammonds Plain Lucasville.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge Petty Officer First Class Ashlyn Day and Petty Officer First Class Uziel Aroldas of St. Margaret's Bay Branch Navy League of Canada for their accomplishments and awards this year. Petty Officer First Class Ashlyn Day received a National Sea Cadet Scholarship as acting coxswain this past year and accepted St. Mary's University, where she began her studies in engineering. Petty Officer First Class Uziel Aroldas was one of 2 cadets in Canada awarded the 2025 Beaverbrook Vimy Prize, which permits youth across Canada to tour the battlefields of France and Flanders in an academic setting. These impressive efforts by our local youth are too great.
Order. The time allotted for member statements has now elapsed. It is now orders of the day. It is oral questions put by members to ministers. The time is now 2 o'clock. We will finish at 2:50. I recognize the honourable leader of the opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, over the summer, we heard from Nova Scotians across this province who are worried about the rising costs of essentials. Since this government was elected, the average family is paying around $400 more per year on their power bills. This government should be helping to lower bills, not standing by as they soar. Will the Premier support our plan to lower people's bills by 10%?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our government understands the challenges that people are facing, the stress that people are feeling. We spent our first term fighting against a carbon tax, which would have made life more expensive and did make life more expensive. And all the while we were fighting against that, the NDP was supporting it and encouraging the carbon tax and more pressure on families. But we understand that the pressures that families are feeling. We're taking the steps that we can to support families in sustainable, meaningful ways, and we'll continue to do that to support Nova Scotia families.
I recognize the honourable leader of the official opposition with her first supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, thousands of Nova Scotians had their social insurance numbers and other data stolen from Nova Scotia Power this summer. Data that the company should not have had and certainly should not have kept. New Democrats are calling for lower barriers to legal recourse against that company so that they can't hold that personal information. We want to let people request credit freezes without hurting their credit scores and to change regulations on data retention periods. Will the Premier support our proposal to protect people's private information?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There is an incredible amount of work happening to protect Nova Scotians from cyber breaches, which we see are becoming more and more common, for sure. We've spent a lot of time talking to the financial services industry, talking to the credit protection agencies to make sure that we get to a spot where we can do absolutely everything we can to protect Nova Scotians. Of course, that's our motivation. But do that in a way that doesn't create more chaos in the lending industry and have a unintended negative consequence. So we're looking at these things. We're talking. We're actively engaged in making sure we do what's possible to support Nova Scotians, and we will continue to roll up our sleeves and do the hard work. Nova Scotians deserve that, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable leader of the official opposition with final question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While the Premier is concerned about lending agencies, we are concerned about Nova Scotians whose SIN numbers are flying in the wind, and this government so far has done nothing about it. This is why we are asking this government to protect consumers' information. They can protect consumers' information and their wallets, but they seem to be choosing not to. A New Democratic government lowered bills before. This government has no excuse not to act now. Nova Scotia Power was privatized by a PC government who sold it for less than it was worth with no cost-benefit analysis. More recent interventions by this government have resulted in higher costs for Nova Scotians. This government can choose to put partisan politics aside, protect Nova Scotians' privacy, and lower their bills. Will the Premier take action?
Order.
Yes or no?
Order. I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The member will probably know there's a bill before the House to protect the security social insurance numbers. That's really important to our government. We're taking the steps that are necessary. But, Madam Speaker, every time we take steps, the NDP tries to block it. We put a solution forward, $500 million in lower taxes for Nova Scotians. Guess what, Madam Speaker? NDP voted against that. They think that instead a roughly $150 million one-time saving, they think that is more significant than a $500 million saving year after year after year. Madam Speaker, that's NDP math for you, Madam Speaker. Right here, we're interested in protecting Nova Scotians. We're not interested in fake math or political sound bites. We'll do what we can for that.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, yesterday we learned that the government is projecting the largest deficit in Nova Scotia's history, a staggering $1.2 billion. That's more than $1,000 in extra debt for each and every Nova Scotian. Money our children and our grandchildren will have to pay. The government has shown no plan is in sight to bring the budget under control, and Nova Scotians are rightfully worried. Can Nova Scotians ever expect to see this budget balanced by the government, or is the Premier and the government content with paying for this mismanagement?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we know we need to grow the economy to really provide the services that Nova Scotians have a right to expect. That's why we're pushing on Wind West, Madam Speaker. That's why we're pushing on resource development. That's why we'll talk about offshore gas and opportunities to grow the revenues, Madam Speaker. But while we do that, we know what those two Liberals across the way, we know what they love, Madam Speaker. They love cutting programs. When they sat around the cabinet table, it was cut, 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 cut. We remember that, Madam Speaker. They cut programs. They fought workers. They fought Nova Scotians. We don't need any more of that, Madam Speaker. We're investing in Nova Scotians. We'll move this province forward.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in just 5 months of this fiscal year, the government has added hundreds of millions to the debt and approved over $1 billion in new spending. Departments continue to overspend year after year, and Nova Scotians will end up footing the bill for generations. After 4 years of not talking about the economy, the government has only recently started talking about it. And the only plan seems to be projects that will take time to grow. My question to the Premier, what immediate measures are in place to stop the out of control spending that we ensure that generations aren't going to be paying off this historic deficit?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're moving the province forward. We're investing in Nova Scotia. We won't be shy about investing in Nova Scotians. We all remember those Liberal days, and I'm sure these two members over there, they remember them as well. Clearly, they have visions of program reviews dancing in their heads and getting excited about what they can cut. They cut programs, Madam Speaker. They underinvested in infrastructure time and time again, year after year, Madam Speaker. We're fixing the very problems that they created and have the nerve to complain about, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney Member 2.
Madam Speaker, I remember those years in our government's 6 balanced budgets and building programs and infrastructure all over this province. I remember it all very well. And Madam Speaker, let's talk about the GDP. Last week, the Premier admitted that Nova Scotia has the lowest GDP per capita in North America. What he also didn't mention is that we're still one of the highest tax provinces, and now we face a crushing deficit because of government mismanagement. The Premier and the government have been in charge for 4 years, and those choices have put our province in a very tough spot. Will the government and the Premier admit that some of these choices have actually made life harder for Nova Scotians, and will they finally take responsibility and explain their plans to not only grow the economy, but deal with an historic deficit that generations will pay?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We want to grow the economy. We have a plan to do that. We need to grow the economy for obvious reasons. And, Madam Speaker, we will grow the economy of this province. Madam Speaker, because we're the builders. They're the blockers. We're the builders, Madam Speaker. We know we need to grow, and that's what we will do. And given the chance again, they will do what they did in the past. Cut, cut, cut. Madam Speaker, we're not interested in that. We're interested in supporting Nova Scotians and growing this economy moving the province forward.
I recognize the honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let's talk about math. A $1.2 billion deficit, and yet Nova Scotians are spending 30% more on their power bills than the average Canadian. People cannot afford another rate hike. Since this government was elected, $400 more a year, and with the 8% increase that is coming, they will be spending approximately $530 more a year. Nova Scotians cannot continue to absorb higher and higher costs. This government is doing nothing about it. I'll ask the Premier again, will he lower people's costs by 10%?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
Madam Speaker, I will remind the member that we have done historic tax cuts in this last year of over $1,000 per family for Nova Scotia. because we saw the challenge of affordability, and I'll remind the member, they voted against those tax cuts. So we're doing tax cuts. We're going to see this economy grow. We're confident in our direction. That's a lot of money in the pockets of Nova Scotians. We're proud of that. We know there's an affordability crisis. We're putting money back in the pockets of Nova Scotia.
I recognize the honourable leader of the official opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are worried about Nova Scotians. We're worried about their privacy, we're worried about their data, and we're worried about their credit. And we wish this government was too. New Democrats want to allow people legal recourse against Nova Scotia Power and private companies that hold personal information. We are more concerned about Nova Scotians, less concerned about the credit agencies. We want to let people request free credit freezes without hurting their credit scores. That might be hard for the banks. That's okay. People need their privacy protected. A similar system exists in BC, and it's better. This government can do more to protect Nova Scotians' privacy and their finances. I'll ask the Premier again, will he act to give Nova Scotians the protections they need and deserve?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, we're doing everything that we can for Nova Scotia. And I'll remind the member that we gave a 1% cut in HST. The last time the NDP were in government, they did a 2% increase in HST. So despite campaigning against that, they reversed it. So, Madam Speaker, we're doing what we can. We'll do everything we can to protect Nova Scotians.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In May, a government official confirmed what renters across Nova Scotia have known for years. The fixed-term lease loophole is too often being abused by certain landlords. The loophole means rents are rising far beyond the rent cap, and thousands of renters have to move every year when their landlord doesn't renew their lease. Why isn't this government doing everything it can to protect renters?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Growth and Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. As I've mentioned before, as my colleague, the Minister of Service Nova Scotia, has mentioned before, there's a time and place for fixed-term leases, Madam Speaker. We know that some of our best landlords in our province, our community housing sector landlords, actually use them, Madam Speaker, and they've long advocated to continue those practices. Madam Speaker, we know that the solution to the housing challenges that we are seeing in this province is more supply. Our government record is strong, 176% increase, Madam Speaker. We're not stopping.
I recognize the honourable member of Dartmouth North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Look, the average rent for someone signing a new lease in Halifax increased by 28% last year. Nova Scotians are spending more on housing and transportation than people in Toronto. So be that as it may, there is a problem with the fixed-term lease system. When will this government close the fixed-term lease loophole and protect renters?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Growth and Development.
Madam Speaker, I share the member's passion to address affordability. However, it's difficult to accept the criticism from the member opposite, a member who voted against a historic budget to bring $500 million of tax cuts to Nova Scotia, Madam Speaker. We know, again, that the solution to addressing the housing challenges in this province is building more housing across Nova Scotia. In the last 3 months alone, we announced 20,000 units from Yarmouth to Cape Breton, Madam Speaker. Which of those units does the member not support?
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, this government makes a mockery of how it spends and reports Nova Scotians' money. Yesterday, we heard about another $1.6 billion spent outside of an annual budget that this legislature approved. That's a massive amount of Nova Scotians' hard-earned money. It's not pocket change. Why should Nova Scotians trust this government with their money when they've never stuck to their budget?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker. Nova Scotia can trust our government, I assure you. And we are working very hard to meet the needs of Nova Scotians. We'll continue to do reporting to the legislature, has been done in the same way that has been done by several previous governments, by the NDP government when it was in power, who established this pattern. We report to the legislature. We're very transparent with our additional appropriations, which is, I believe, what the member asked about. So we're very proud of that. We'll continue to do that.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, this government does not have a record of giving clear information to Nova Scotians about how it spends their money. That's billions of dollars of government spending without transparent competitions for contracts, without clear oversight, and without a focus on results. And they're spending more than ever. Now we are facing a $1 billion deficit for this fiscal year, which is barely half over. Why won't this government come clean with Nova Scotians about their excessive spending?
Yeah, order. I asked that the honourable member, it's, you know, you can't say certain words, so that's insinuating that they're hiding, and just, I asked you to retract that and maybe find a different little phrase for it. The come clean. It's not, just wait a second, Minister. Easy. Yeah, I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
So just to clarify, Madam Speaker, you're wondering about giving clear information to Nova Scotians? Is that
clear information, Nova Scotians, that's right. So you retract those words and then...
Sure. This government isn't giving Nova Scotians the information that they need to know their money is being well spent.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, we are working hard as a government to meet the needs of Nova Scotians. That's a reality. We're building schools, hospitals, housing across Nova Scotia. If the member has an issue with what we're doing, I ask her to tell us which program should we not have done, which project should we not have done. We're proud of our record. We'll continue to work hard.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, since we were in the legislature last spring, Nova Scotia Power has been busy. Yet again, they're back before the Energy Board asking Nova Scotians to foot the bill, this time with rate increases that will take hundreds of dollars a year out of families' pockets. It seems like Groundhog Day. Every time you open the paper, there's another ask for more money. My question to the Premier, he's shown frustration about these increases, but where was the government all summer when Nova Scotia Power was lining up these filings? Nova Scotians need more than frustration, they need leadership. What action is the Premier prepared to take?
I recognize the honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. And time again, Nova Scotia Power has shown Nova Scotians how out of touch they are with them. And after overseeing the largest, or one of the largest data breaches in our province's history, looking for a raising of rates is not what the utilities should be doing. They should be looking to build trust and build trust back with Nova Scotians, Madam Speaker. So look, Nova Scotians know that we have their best interests at heart, and we'll continue to do what we can to make sure that we hold Nova Scotia Power accountable. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the last time the government took action against Nova Scotia Power, they made things worse, pushing costs down the line and onto Nova Scotians' bills anyway. I looked back at the PC platform from the last election, and it clearly promised to cap power rate increases to the average Canadian rate, and I'll table that. But here's the problem. Across Canada, we're seeing high increases as high as 9.7% in New Brunswick. The government and the Premier have publicly expressed their frustration over a 4% increase in Nova Scotia. Will he admit that this approach he has laid out in the platform could make things worse for Nova Scotians?
I recognize the honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. And over the last 4 years, Madam Speaker, we've taken a number of extraordinary initiatives to ensure that power rates are kept as low as they can, Madam Speaker. I think of the $500 million loan guarantee that we helped negotiate that kept rates from being increased by 19%, Madam Speaker. I think of the $117 million investment to buy the fuel adjustment mechanism, Madam Speaker, that prevented a 7% increase in power rates, Madam Speaker. It's important that Nova Scotians know and get the facts straight that we have been working very hard for them and protecting them, and we will continue to do that, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The public housing wait list has exploded under this government's watch. More than 8,000 Nova Scotians are waiting. More than 1,000 of them were added just in the last 8 months. Families, seniors, and young people are being left behind while rents skyrocket. Madam Speaker, my question is to the minister responsible for housing. Why is this government leaving families with no options instead of protecting renters who can't afford their homes?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Growth and Development.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'll remind the House that we are making a generational investment in the largest number of new public housing units, Madam Speaker, coming right across the province, Madam Speaker. It's taking a bit of time, but we want to make sure that we're getting it right, and our commitment to Nova Scotia still stands strong. That said, Madam Speaker, we know that there's a wait list. I'm not shying away from the wait list. It's important to understand that over 600 people on the wait list have been offered a place in public housing, but have turned it down, Madam Speaker. So we know that we need to manage the existing portfolio of the over 12,000 public housing units that we have, but also looking at ways to address overhousing and also looking at rent geared to income, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And saying numbers about, how many housing starts have put forward doesn't make houses available for folks. And yet this wait list continues to grow. Almost half of the people stuck on the public housing wait list are seniors. Many are on fixed incomes, and they simply can't keep up with the huge rent hikes this government continues to allow. After a lifetime of hard work, Nova Scotians deserve to be able to retire with dignity, not to be left wondering how they'll afford their homes. So, Madam Speaker, will this government close the fixed-term lease loophole and bring in real rent control to protect seniors from being forced out of their homes?
I recognize the Honourable Minister for Growth and Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's important to note that about 20% of the folks that are on the wait list are actually receiving a rent supplement, Madam Speaker. We're supporting Nova Scotians while we look to get them into public housing. Madam Speaker, I mentioned briefly about rent geared to income. It's come to my attention that there's folks making over $100,000 living in public housing. I don't think that's right, Madam Speaker. We have folks that are in dire need of public housing in this province. We're working hard to address the wait list, but I'm asking the member, do they agree that people living in public housing should be making over $100,000? I say no.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On May 18th, I had the privilege to work in ER in beautiful Yarmouth. On that day, the wait time was 16 hours, not the 4 hours reported on the app. Many people left without being seen. In 2024, over 54,000 Nova Scotians left emergency rooms without receiving care. That's almost 1 in 10 people leaving. My question to the minister, does the minister believe Nova Scotians who are put in a position to leave emerge without care meets any acceptable standard of care in our province?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the member opposite for the question. So certainly we want people to stay and get care at the emergency room when that's the appropriate place for them to get care. We've certainly enhanced the support available in emergency rooms. So sometimes while people wait, their care actually is begun in the waiting room with waiting room care providers. People can have diagnostic testing done. They can have their vitals checked. They can have a number of different things that allows them to expedite their care once they get behind in to see the physicians. We have physician assistants, we have nurse practitioners. There's been a great deal of investment. We have virtual urgent care, virtual emergency care in order to support people. We do see a decrease in the number of people who are seeking low acuity care in the emergency departments. Our triage scores 4s and 5s are coming down, which is a testament to the work that's happening in community.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Armdale.
Madam Speaker, most of us who work in Emerge know the number of patients leaving Nova Scotia ERs without receiving care is increasing across the province. Many major reasons for this are long wait times and overcrowding. Often they return days later much sicker and requiring admission to hospital. I've seen this so many times. After 5 years of promising to fix healthcare, when should Nova Scotians expect to receive care, when they need it, and where they need it?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And certainly the Premier and I just left the summit, Health Summit, this morning, actually, prior to coming in to the House today. And actually, we were encouraged by what we heard from, prominent emergency room physician in the province who tells us to keep going. The things that we are doing are making a difference. This is not only an issue for Nova Scotia, it's across the country, but we are leading in almost every front in terms of our healthcare. We know that there are people who leave. We don't want that either, nor do the clinicians. So we continue to work with clinicians to understand how best to support them. The work of the Minister of Seniors and Long-Term Care is having a very positive impact in terms of what's happening in the emergency room, because this is about access and flow. We'll continue to work and continue to invest. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yesterday, we saw that over half of the government departments are overspending in their budget. The only place that the government seems to be tightening their belt is in the Department of Agriculture. Farmers are doing everything they can to keep their operations going in this current drought, and I'm wondering why this government isn't stepping up to do their part in this emergency.
We're all blowing the stink off us today, aren't we? I recognize the Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know that the prolonged drought is having a tremendous impact on our farmers across the province. Certainly hearing that on my visits to farms myself, through industry associations from my colleagues in rural parts across Nova Scotia are telling me the same thing. And we've really taken a coordinated approach to support farmers. Our staff are at provincial tables, emergency tables to help with water access. Our ag reps are working one-on-one with farmers to find solutions through our current suite of business risk management programs. We're collaborating with the Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture to promote safe harvesting during the wildfire season. And our teams are working with farmers to file insurance claims right now. So that's more money in their pockets faster, Madam Speaker. We also increased the budget for the on-farm water management system, and I'm happy to tell you more in a couple seconds.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Lunenburg Farmers Market recently took to social media to share what they were hearing. One Christmas tree grower told them that they're expecting to lose all of this year's Christmas tree seedings that were planted back in April, and about half of last year's. What does the minister have to say to farmers who will be impacted by the summer's drought for decades to come?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would agree that the full impact of this drought season isn't going to be known in the immediate term. We are working with the Federation of Agriculture to organize outreach sessions after the fall harvest season to gauge what impact the drought has had on them, to have a better idea. But the question about the Department of Agriculture tightening their belt, Madam Speaker, 3 consecutive budgets, 2023-24, 24-25, and 25-26, included increases to the Department of Agriculture budget. And Madam Speaker, each time the NDP voted against that budget.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chronic pain and acute pain can be debilitating for people. That is why the pain clinic at Cumberland Regional has been so important. It's been in operation for the last 17 years. A contract for the pain clinic was grandfathered in when the Cumberland Health Authority became Nova Scotia Health Authority, and I'll table the legislation that clearly states contracts are to be honored from Cumberland Health Authority to Nova Scotia Health. Despite this, over 3,500 patients that have been served by the pain clinic no longer have access to interventional pain treatments. They have allowed them to have some quality of life. Patients have been told that appointments will not be given, and Nova Scotia Health do not seem to be able to work with physicians to find solutions. My question to the minister is...
Order.
Oh.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so certainly we are confident that as Nova Scotia Health and the physicians involved in the pain clinic work together, that there will be a resolution found. It really is about a deep understanding about the services that are provided in that clinic and where the best location for those are. Some may be off-site, some may be required to be offered in hospital. So those conversations continue. I expect both Nova Scotia Health and the physicians to work in collaboration with one another in order to find a solution for the patients who require those services.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland North.
Madam Speaker, I wrote to the Minister of Health on August the 11th, 2025, which was 43 days ago, and I'll table that letter. I asked for help with this clinic on behalf of the patients that are contacting me every day. And these people are residents from across Cumberland County, but also all of Nova Scotia. Patients have relied on this important healthcare service for the last 17 years. Personally, I know the details. Nova Scotia Health is trying to move the clinic, taking away admin staff, trying to move it out of the perioperative area and into what was a closet, away from nursing care and supports in the case of adverse events that physicians need. Will the minister make a commitment today to meet with these two physicians that are providing this essential care?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And certainly over the course of the situation that's unfolded, the member from Cumberland South and I have worked really hard. We've been in touch with Nova Scotia Health leadership to make sure that the concerns of the folks in that area are heard. Certainly he's been a good advocate for the folks living up there, and I appreciate his support. We definitely will continue to work with Nova Scotia Health, and we do expect those physicians in Nova Scotia Health to work together in order to find a reasonable solution. Some things may be offered off-site, but the things that require keeping patients safe will happen on-site, and those conversations will continue until we find a resolution. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Speaker, housing is the biggest expense and often the biggest stressor. For Cape Bretoners, under this government, rent in the CBRM has gone up more than $2,500 per year, and the public housing waitlist has ballooned by close to 40%. Why is the minister responsible for housing letting rents spiral out of control in the CBRM?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Growth and Development.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, part of our government's work is to build more housing across Nova Scotia, create the conditions to build more housing across Nova Scotia. Madam Speaker, if only that work would have started perhaps under the previous Liberal government, perhaps even the NDP government. Madam Speaker, this is legacy infrastructure that has been long neglected. Again, I'll remind the member opposite, the first and the largest investment in over 30 years, Madam Speaker, including public housing units in Cape Breton, 22 of which are underway in Glace Bay, Madam Speaker. We're supporting the North Sydney Food Bank, Madam Speaker, with housing there. We're also supporting infrastructure and housing being built in Port Hawkesbury, including projects for healthcare, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Madam Speaker, that's a cold comfort to Cape Bretoners who have to get on a list for housing if they're homeless. In CBRM's housing needs assessment, 92% of respondents said that they felt like they would not be able to find a suitable alternative if their housing situation changed unexpectedly, and I'll table that. But instead of helping people stay in their homes, this government has left the fixed-term lease loophole wide open and actually sped up evictions. When will this government realize that renters need protection, not punishment?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Growth and Development.
Madam Speaker, it's important to note that the public housing wait list isn't just a running wait list, Madam Speaker. We actually prioritize folks that are in critical need of housing, including folks experiencing homelessness, including survivors of gender-based violence, Madam Speaker, including folks that need to be in close proximity for health care, Madam Speaker. The three efficiencies and program improvements that we brought to the Nova Scotia Public Housing Agency, Madam Speaker, we've reduced the wait times, Madam Speaker. We're shaving off times. Madam Speaker, we're here to support Nova Scotians. We'll continue to do so. We know that there's more work to be done. We're not going to shy away from it. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Fairview Clayton Park.
This government is letting Nova Scotians struggle under the weight of ballooning power bills. Advocate Chris Benjamin with the Ecology Action Centre said this government has done nothing about this in 5 years. He said this government plays politics and uses Nova Scotia Power as their boogeyman. Does the Minister of Energy know that the boogeyman isn't real, but that massive power bills are, and they are crushing Nova Scotians?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. We know that affordability and cost of living is top of mind for Nova Scotians, and it's top of mind for our government as well, Madam Speaker. And it's not just in the last budget where we had a historic $500 million investment in tax relief, Madam Speaker, but also before that. Let's talk about reducing childcare costs by 50%, Madam Speaker. Let's talk about indexing income assistance, Madam Speaker. Let's talk about, Madam Speaker, our opportunities on efficiency, Madam Speaker, energy efficiency, so that we can support Nova Scotians' reduction. That's right, Madam Speaker, school lunches. Madam Speaker, affordability is top of mind for this government, and we'll do what we can to support Nova Scotians.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Fairview Clayton Park.
My concerns are regarding the rates of Nova Scotia Power. Under the current government, more families are struggling to keep up with their power bills. 43% of Nova Scotian households have power bills that are higher than they can afford, one of the highest rates in Canada. People are already falling behind, and now Nova Scotia Power is proposing another rate hike. As more Nova Scotian families struggle to keep the heat on this winter, will this government finally take action and lower power bills?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think it's important to get the facts straight here, Madam Speaker. And I've mentioned a couple of comments before, but $117 million investment to purchase a fuel adjustment mechanism to prevent a 7% increase in power rates, Madam Speaker. A $500 million loan guarantee that we helped negotiate, Madam Speaker, to keep power rates from going up 19%, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we will do what we can to support Nova Scotians in affordability and cost of living crisis, and as we say, we always do what we can, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration. Long-term care and home support workers provide essential care to the seniors in our province. Day in and day out, these folks keep our loved ones safe and supported. But their wages are so low, they can barely afford the essentials and take care of themselves. My question is, when will this government deliver fair, competitive compensation to long-term and home support care workers?
I recognize there's two of you jumping up here. Which one do you want to stand? You want, okay. What fun we're having. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's clear that there are a lot of ministers in this House who care about our health care and long-term care and home care workers as well. Madam Speaker, what I want Nova Scotians to know is that this Premier 3.5 years ago made a dedicated department of seniors and long-term care to tell Nova Scotians that seniors were our top priority and that he was going to have a dedicated minister solely looking after that responsibility. We were the ones who brought in free CCA tuition for 2,700 CCAs across the province of Nova Scotia. We brought in a 23% pay raise for those same CCAs. First thing we did. At the same time as
Order. I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Speaker, this government prides itself on announcements about new long-term care beds, but the fact is that beds only deliver care to our seniors when facilities can find and retain staff to provide care in those facilities. While it crows about opening new beds, how does this government square delivery of best-in-world care to Nova Scotia seniors while remunerating the staff delivering care to those seniors with worst-in-Canada wages, benefits, and working conditions?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Madam Speaker, as a healthcare professional for 41 years, facts matter, so let's correct the record there, Madam Speaker. The injury rate in long-term care dropped by 12% last year, which is the lowest in history. The injury rate in long-term care has never gone down except under this government. It is the safest place it's ever been. The staffing rate in long-term care is the highest in the country at 4.1, Madam Speaker, and the majority of our nursing homes are functioning at that highest staffing level. We increased nursing staffing by 33% under our government, Madam Speaker. We also have free tuition for CCAs to become LPNs as well.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Energy. Over 10,000 families and businesses in Cape Breton were left without power for over 24 hours in the summer. Not during an ice storm or a hurricane, but in the middle of a sunny summer's day. And across the province, Nova Scotians have seen repeated outages increasing, and this is not normal. Other provinces don't experience the same thing. If the power grid can't even be relied on in the summer, how can we trust it in the winter? My question is, why has the Minister's office failed to hold Nova Scotia Power accountable for years of missed reliability standards?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. And absolutely, what Nova Scotians are looking for is affordable and reliable power, and that is something that for a number of years that Nova Scotia Power has not been able to do. And so we are continuing to hold them accountable, Madam Speaker. We will continue to push that envelope to make sure that they're investing in transmission and vegetation management, Madam Speaker, because that's an important part of making sure that Nova Scotians have the lights on when they need them, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And respectfully, Nova Scotia has missed these targets 3 years in a row. Yet the government continues to let them raise rates while communities sit in the dark. This is grocery stores in rural communities. This is restaurants that couldn't open during the busiest seasons and busiest weekend seasons as well. There's lots of talk about more oversight and reliability plans, but outages are getting more frequent by the day. At what point will the government stop acting like Nova Scotia Power's PR team and start acting like a minister responsible for protecting ratepayers?
I love it when we're all laughing. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, let's be clear. Our government is very focused on making sure Nova Scotians have reliable and affordable power that they deserve. Madam Speaker, I do know that recently that Nova Scotia Power has been fined for not meeting their standards, and that's the regulator's role. And Madam Speaker, we will continue to engage to make sure that Nova Scotians have that power that they need when they need it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, the transition houses that help women and survivors experiencing gender-based violence are not getting enough support from this government. Last year, they received more than 5,200 calls from people desperately in need of help, and they can't keep up. Frontline workers tell us that the funding this government is providing isn't stable, predictable, or adequate to address the crisis. How long will women have to wait for safety and security in Nova Scotia?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Communications, Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. You know, I've been really honored to be able to travel the province from one end to the other and visiting the transition centres and the women's shelters. I've heard from frontline service providers and from everyday folks and from survivors, and you know, what I do hear is that while there is more work to be done, the investment and the historic investment that we've made, the biggest one in over 20 years, has been truly well received. And so folks are bought into the process. We all know that we are climbing this mountain, and we know there's more work to be done, and we are happy to do that work. So thank you so much.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Of course, the money that's been invested already is welcome because the money was at historic low levels. The fact is, if this government means to help survivors of gender-based violence, they need to fund a response at an epidemic level. By 2028, the federal Liberal government will cut funding to programs to address gender-based violence by 80%. We're already living with an epidemic of gender-based violence. It's vulnerable Nova Scotians who will pay dearly for these cuts. So does the minister have a plan to make up for this funding decrease by the Liberal government?
I recognize the honourable minister responsible for the Advisory Council on the Status of Women.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. I do think it's more than just a money problem that you can just throw money at and it will just solve itself. This government has responded with $102 million across government, and there's more than just money as part of those solutions. It comes in the form of women's equity, seeing more women at the leadership table, more entrepreneurs and more CEOs. It comes in ways from labor skills and immigration for 5 days of paid leave. You know, it comes in so many facets. So I would recommend that we don't shrink the problem by just suggesting that it's simply money and look at the broad across-government approach that we are employing. Thank you.
Good job. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Minister of Environment says he's taking environmental racism very seriously. But more than a year after the environmental racism report was finished, he still hasn't even read it. People across the province have been impacted by environmental racism. It hurts our health, our communities, and our properties. They deserve to know what's in this report. So, Madam Speaker, why is this government not being transparent with Nova Scotians about what they're doing to address environmental racism? And I'd like the Minister of Environment to answer that question.
I recognize the honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member for the question. This is a very important topic to Nova Scotians. Certainly as Minister, I'm very aware of the content of the advice that was given to the government, and we have an upcoming meeting with the panel. In the summer, the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism, Environment and Climate Change sent a letter, an invitation to those that participated on the panel to meet with us so we could get their opinion on what the best path forward is, and the ministers and I look forward to that future meeting this fall. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, you could start by reading the report and stop having meetings after meetings and traumatizing communities over and over again. I think the communities deserve an answer, and they need to have that answer here while we're in legislature asking you the questions. So please answer our communities about why this report is not being released and why we're not addressing environmental racism.
Order. Order, please. The time allotted for oral questions put by members to the ministers has expired. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This concludes government business for today. I move that the House now do rise to meet again September 24th from the hours of 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Following the daily routine and question period will be opposition business. Followed that will be second reading of bills. I ask that you recognize the Honourable House Leader of the Liberals to call opposition business for tomorrow.
I recognize the Honourable the Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tomorrow we'll be calling Bill 129, Bill 132, and Bill 133. Turn it back over to the House Leader, the government.
The motion is that the House rise to meet again on September 24th between the hours of 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Contrary-minded, nay? The motion is carried.